Good day everyone, especially to you sir. I'm Nida Pactoran Valmarita, a third-year criminology student. Today my topic is all about drugs. Drug defined is a chemical substance that brings about physical, physiological, behavioral, and or psychological change in a person taking it. All medicines are drugs, but not all drugs are medicine drugs. Next, medicinal drug. A substance which when taken into the human body cures illness and or relieves signs or symptoms of disease. Next, dangerous drugs. A substance affecting the central nervous system which when taken into the human body brings about physical, emotional, or behavioral changes in a person taking it. Next, drug abuse. Any non-medical use of drugs that cause physical, psychological, legal, economic, or social damage to the user or to people affected by the user's behavior. Abuse usually refers to illegal drugs but may also be applicable to drugs that are available legally, such as prescribed medications and certain over-the-counter medications. Next, classification of drugs. According to origin, natural drugs are active ingredients, secondary metabolic products of plants and other living systems that may be isolated by extraction. For example, raw opium, marijuana, coca bush. Next, synthetic drugs are artificially produced substances synthesis in the laboratory for the illicit market, which are almost wholly manufactured from chemical compounds in illicit laboratories. For examples, methamphetamine and barbiturates. According to legal classification, Republic Act 9165 Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. Next, RA Republic Act 6425 classified as regulated and prohibited. Under Republic Act 9165, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, the term prohibited and regulated was changed into dangerous drug with the following classifications. Next, immediate precursors. A chemical substance used in the clandestine manufacturing process becomes incorporated in full or in part into the final molecules of a substance under international control. Second, essential chemicals. Chemical substance used as reagent or solvent in a legal manufacture of controlled substances. Third, narcotic, psychotropic, and designer. According to international classification, narcotic substance, psychotropic substances, and designer drugs. According to pharmacological classification ethics, stimulants, hallucinogens, depressants, and inhalants. First, stimulants are drugs which increase alertness of physical disposition. For example, amphetamine. Street name eye opener, lid poppers, pip pills, uppers, hearts. What is it? Reduces appetite, relieves mental depression, comfort, fatigue, and sleepiness. How taken? Orally as tablet or capsule. Effects: general wakefulness, increased alertness or initiative. Toxic: from restlessness to coma and death. Dangers: dependence, overdose, violent or bizarre behavior. For examples, shabu, methamphetamine, hydrochloride. Street name: poor man's cocaine, Shabs uba siupaw siya ice. What is it? White odorless crystal or crystalline powder with a bitter rumbling taste. Numbing taste rather. How taken? Ingestion, inhalation, chasing the dragon, sniffing, injection, smoke. Effects: general, anxiety, irritability, irrational behavior. Long term, psychosis similar to schizophrenia, difficulty in concentrating, loss of interest in sex. Physical, chest pain, irregular heartbeat, hypertension, convulsion, death. Dangers, injection from contaminated needles may lead to risk of infections, libitis, septimania, AIDS, etc. Next, hallucinogens are drugs which affect sensation, thinking, self-awareness, and emotion. Changes in time and space perception. Delusions, false beliefs, and hallucinations may be mild or overwhelming depending on dose and quality of drugs. For example, ecstasy. Street name XTC, Adam Essence E Herbals. How taken? Swallowing or inhalation. Effects: exaggerated emotions, makes HR and BP hike up, dries the mouth, stiffens arms, legs, jaw, dilates pupils of the eyes, causes faintness, chills, sweating, and nausea. Dangers: it can really kill. For example, is LSD, lysergic acid, diethylamide. Street name: Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, wedding bells, acid, white sugar, lightning, cubes, and brain eaters. What it is: a semi-synthetic alkaloid substances extracted from a fungus which grows on rye, wheat, and other grains, odorless, tasteless, colorless. Effects: psychological, vivid hallucinations, confusion, blurring and distinction between conscious and unconscious, though, etc. Physical, dilated pupils, flush, face increase, BP, etc. Dangers: may cause abnormal amount of breakage of chromosomes of Y bases that carry genes which may result to miscarriages and birth defects. For example, marijuana. Street name: Mary Jane. Flower, pampapugi, brownines, damo, pot, tea, joint, dope. What it is: comes from cannabis sativa, L. Indian hemp, looks like fine green tobacco. How taken? Smoke in pipes or cigarettes, can be taken in food, made into candy, sniff in powder form, mixed with honey or butter. Effects: immediate, faster heartbeat, bloodshot eyes, dry mouth. Long term, chest pain, temporary loss of fertility, cancer, marijuana, burnout. Dangers: slows down users' mental and psychomotor activities. Long-term use may lead to psychological dependence, may lead to cancer. Next, depressants are drugs which depress or lower the functions of the central nervous system. There are three types of depressants. First, narcotics, a drug which induces sleep. Hypnotics or stupor and relieve pain. Analgesics, something that soothes or causes a sensation of mental numbness. This includes opium, opiates, heroin, morphine, and codeine. Second, tranquilizers, a substance that reduces anxiety, ease tension and relax muscles. Sedatives and hypnotics calm the nerves, reduce tension, and induce sleep. For example, barbiturates, alcohol. Third, inhalants. There are any liquid, solid, or mixed substance that has the property of releasing toxic, psychoactive buffers or fumes. For example, solvent, glue, gasoline, kerosene, paint, thinner, naphthalene. What are considered dangerous drugs? Dangerous drug is a substance affecting the central nervous system which when taken into the human body brings about physical, emotional, or behavioral changes in a person taking it. It has a substance which when taken into the human body alters mood, perception, feelings, and behavior. Next, under Republic Act 6425, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drug Act of 1972, dangerous drugs are classified into three main categories, namely, first, prohibited drugs, second, regulated drugs, third, volatile substances. Prohibited drug, which includes opium and its active components and derivatives such as heroin and morphine. Coca leaf and its derivatives, principally cocaine, alpha and beta eucaine, hallucinogenic drugs such as mescaline, lysergic acid, diethylamide, LSD, and other substances producing similar effects, Indian hemp and its derivatives. All preparations made from any of the foregoing and other drugs are chemical preparations, whether natural or synthetic, with the physiological effects of a narcotic or a hallucinogenic drug, as amended by BP 179, date March 2, 1982. Next, regulated drug, which includes self-inducing sedatives such as secobarbital, phenobarbital, pentobarbital, barbital, amobarbital, and any other drug which contains a salt or a derivative of a salt of barbituric acid. Any salt isomer or salt of an isomer of amphetamine such as benzedrine or dexedrine, or any drug which produces a psychological action similar to amphetamine. And hypnotic drugs such as methacholine, nitrazepam, or any other compound producing similar psychological effects. Next, volatile substance, liquid, solid, or mixed substances having the property of releasing toxic buffers or fumes or any chemical substance which when sniffed, smelled, inhaled, or introduced into the psychological system of the body produce or induce a condition of intoxication, inebriation, excitement, stupefaction, etc. Next, Republic Act 9165, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, gives a single definition for prohibited drugs and regulated drugs. The old law defines the term dangerous drugs arising in a person following administration or use of that drug on a periodic or continuous basis. Next, characteristics of drug dependency. First, physical dependence. The body's physical system changes until the body needs that particular drug in order to function. Second, mental or psychological dependence. A need of drug in order to feel good, to get by or feel normal. Third, idiosyncrasy or side effect. Use, refers to the act of injecting extranervously or extramuscularly, or of consuming either by chewing, smoking, sniffing, eating, swallowing, drinking, or otherwise introducing into the physiological system of the body any of the dangerous drugs. Next, sell means the act of giving a dangerous drug, whether for money or any other material consideration. Question: what happens to confiscated, seized, and surrendered dangerous drugs, plant sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors and essential chemicals, instruments and paraphernalia, and or laboratory equipment? The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, shall have custody of all dangerous drugs, plant sources of dangerous drugs, controlled precursors, and essential chemicals, as well as instruments or paraphernalia, and or laboratory equipment that are confiscated, seized, or surrendered. The apprehending team or the group in custody of the confiscated drugs shall immediately prepare an inventory and photograph the items in the presence of the accused of his counsel, a representative from the media and the Department of Justice, DOJ, and any elected public official. The items will then be submitted to the PDEA forensic laboratory for examination within 24 hours after receipt of the items. The forensic laboratory examiner shall issue a certification of the laboratory results. The court shall conduct an ocular inspection of the confiscated items within 72 hours after the filing of the criminal case. The PDEA shall then destroy or burn the items in the presence of the accused, a representative from media and DOJ, civil society groups, and any elected official. However, a representative sample shall be retained. After the judgment has been rendered in the criminal case, the trial prosecutor shall inform the Dangerous Drugs Board that the case has been terminated and ask permission from the court to turn over the representative sample to the PDEA. Next, examination of dangerous drugs. Drug testing is a form of forensic testing. Drug test results should be scientifically, legally, and forensically defensible. Drug identification is a branch of forensic chemistry that deals with the scientific examination of drugs and volatile substances. Drug identification is usually conducted by a forensic chemist or chemical officer to determine the presence of dangerous drug on submitted specimens. The forensic chemist or chemical officer also conducts drug tests and body fluids of suspected drug users and users to determine the presence of dangerous drugs metabolites. Paraphernalia, like smoking pipes, toters, and aluminum foils, should also be submitted for examination to determine the presence of dangerous drugs. Next, forms of dangerous drugs. Drugs are in various forms. This includes tablets, capsules, liquid, powder, brick or discs of marijuana, crushed leaves, and uprooted plants. Examination of the sample taken from the alleged confiscated dangerous drug. Next, methods of examination. Qualitative examination and quantitative examination. Steps common to quantitative and qualitative. Selection of method to be used. Physical test, sampling, sample preparation, chemical test, confirmatory examination, calculation and interpretation of dates, drawing of conclusion and writing report. 2 pieces in the examination of the alleged confiscated dangerous drugs. Screening test or preliminary test, also known as the color test. This test is non-specific and preliminary in nature. It is employed to reduce the family or group of drug to a small unmanageable number. Screening test includes a series of color tests producing characteristic colors for its family or group of drugs. This is done by adding a specific reagent to a known sample in a spot plate. Screening test is quite simple to perform even the investigators in the field. As a matter of fact, field tests using these techniques are being taught in narcotics. Investigation courses. Test reagents and basic apparatus are commercially available. Color reactions. Upon addition of specific reagents to a sample of dangerous drugs, a specific color reaction is produced, such as cannabis, docinoise 11, violet, fast blue, bismuth, purple, red, cocaine, cobalt, thiocyanate test or city test, blue, Scott test or modified city test, reagent 1 equals blue, reagent 2 equals pink, reagent 3 equals blue. Next, confirmatory test. Confirmatory test is a method employed to confirm the results of the screening or preliminary test. This test involves the application of an analytical procedure to identify the presence of a specific drug or metabolites. This is independent of the screening test and which uses techniques and chemical principles different from that of the initial test in order to ensure reliability and accuracy. Next, chromatography is a process of separating mixture and comparing the migration of its component with standard. Some chromatographic techniques include gas chromatography, thin layer chromatography, high pressure liquid chromatography. What is gas chromatography? It is a separate technique. The mobile piece is a gas. Separation is based on the difference in migration rates among sample components. Next is spectroscopy, a confirmatory method whereby light is used to identify the sample specimen. Next, Fourier, transform infrared spectroscopy, FTIR, used for the identification of pure organic substances, identifies organic substances, particularly dangerous drugs, and explosive ingredients based on their characteristics, functional groups. In layman's term, the resulting spectrum could be referred to as the fingerprints of the substance. Next, ultraviolet visible spectroscopy, used for screening of dangerous drugs in urine specimen. Examination of the urine specimen. The rate of excretion from the body depends on the drug's solubility in fat. Water-soluble drugs, such as cocaine, are excreted quickly, while fat-soluble drugs, such as marijuana, may take several weeks or months before excretion. Next, validity test for urine specimen. Validity test is conducted to determine the integrity of the samples. Reasons for conducting validity test: in cases of unobserved urine collection, when there is suspicion that our urine specimen that has tampered. Instances when to allow unobserved urine specimen collection. When donor is physically unable to go to the laboratory. When donor is involved in a crime scene, when donor is involved in post-accident trauma, when donor is critically ill. Next, different types of tempered urine specimen. First, adulterated. A specimen containing either a substance that is not a normal constituent for that type of specimen or containing an endogenous substance at a concentration that is not a normal psychological concentration. Next, diluted refers to a specimen with less than normal physiological constituents. Next, substituted. A specimen which has been derived through switching or replacement of the original sample. Ways to adulterate urine samples. Addition of salt, addition of juice, addition of detergent, addition of bleach and other oxidizing adulterants, addition of illicit drugs. Ways to substitute a urine sample. Urine from friends or other persons not using drugs may be used as substitute specimen. Replace sample with other substance similar to urine in appearance. Way to dilute a urine specimen. First, internal dilution. Example, intake of plenty of water before collection or drinking of herbal tea, etc. Second, external dilution. For example, addition of water to previously collected urine. Parameters for validity test. Initial validity test. Physical characteristics such as color, odor, etc. Volume, temperature, pH, specific gravity. Nitrites. Confirmatory validity test. Physical characteristics such as color, odor, etc. Volume, temperature, specific gravity, nitrates, creatinine oxidizing agents. Next, other methods for confirmatory validity test. Physical characteristics visually determined. Volume same as physical characteristics. Temperature using thermometer. pH to pH meter calibrated with appropriate buffers. Specific gravity. Use a refractometer. Next, when do we consider a urine specimen as invalid? A urine specimen is considered invalid under the following circumstances: adulterated, substituted, or diluted, improperly collected, handled and stored, improperly documented. Next, gunshot residue. Basically, gunshot residue comes from the powder component of bullet, elements from cartridge cases and gun barrel where the bullet passes. When these components are burned, certain products of combustion are formed, which includes partially burned and unburned particles. These particles are deposited on the target as definite pattern depending upon the distance between the muzzle of the gun and the target at the time of discharge. Upon discharge of firearm, gunpowder residues, nitrates may be deposited on a person at close proximity. So the interpretations as to who discharged the firearm should be made with caution. Thornton, 1986, hand or body part close to the fired weapon may have gunpowder residues consistent with having discharged the weapon. However, absence of gunpowder residues on the person's hands or body parts does not mean that he or she did not discharge a firearm. Gunpowder residue may be found on the skin or clothing of the person who discharged the gun, on the entrance bullet hole of garment or wound of the victim, or the other target materials at the scene. There are types of gunpowder. First, single base, when the basic ingredient is nitrocellulose. Second, double base, nitrocellulose plus 1 to 40% nitroglycerin. Third, triple base, nitrocellulose plus nitroglycerin plus nitroguanidine. This can be differentiated using a mass spectrophotometer, composition of cartridge keys, bullet coating, and metal jacket. Next, gunshot residue examinations. Purpose. Gunshot residue examinations are performed to the help of investigators in determining whether a person that has discharged a firearm or not, whether a firearm was discharged or not, and the possible gunshot range or the distance of the shooter to the victim, both hands of the suspect as well as those of the victim. The firearms and clothing of the victim must be examined to determine the presence of gunpowder nitrates. Types of powder used and the ammunition of small firearms. There are two types of powder used in the ammunition of small firearms. First, black powder. This consists of a mixture of carbon, charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate. This mixture is used as an igniter in smokeless gun propellant. It consists of a mixture of 15% charcoal, 10% sulfur, and 75% potassium nitrates. Aluminum is added to enhance the burning properly. When this powder is burned, combustion reaction takes place. Second, smokeless powder. This mixture consists of cellulose or glycerol nitrate combined with some stabilizers, nitrobenzene or graphite nitrates. When the powder explodes, the chemical reaction takes place. Next, primers. To explode a low explosive, flame is required of guns, and flame is applied by means of a primer. Primer produces flame on percussion. A typical primer consists of a case containing an initiating explosive such as mercury fulminate, an oxidizing agent such as potassium chlorate or barium nitrate, and a fuel such as antimony sulfate. This component is the basis of examination of gunshot, particularly primer residues for distance determination. Next, detection of gunshot residue. The following are common methods used by most crime laboratories to detect gunshot residue. First, paraffin test. Second, lead residue. Detection limit up to 30 feet and always present on the opposite sides of the penetrated target. Reported from intermediate glass target present, Missler and Armstrong, 1970. Third, gunpowder residue examination. Detection limit, highly variable, up to 30 cm and up to 21 inches is common. Fourth, other examinations. Next, methods of examination. Paraffin test. To determine whether a person has discharged a firearm, the paraffin test is used. The basis of this test is the presence of nitrates in the gunpowder residue. When a warm melted paraffin wax is applied on the hands of the alleged shooter, it will cause the pores of the skin to open to exude the particles of gunpowder residue. These particles of gunpowder residue are being extracted by the paraffin cast with the use of melted paraffin wax and will appear as glow spits. Paraffin wax. Paraffin wax is a white, translucent, tasteless, odorless solid consisting of a mixture of solid hydrocarbons or high molecule weight. It is insoluble when water and acids are soluble, and benzene, ligron, warm alcohol, chloroform, turpentine, carbon disulfide, and olive oil. The melted paraffin wax penetrates the minute of the skin upon application, thus adhering if there are particles present. When the cast are filled, the born and partially burned particles are extracted. A person firing a gun will likely have the particles located above the thumb and forefinger, since these are surfaces exposed to the gun. What should be noted in the interpretation of results? Time reaction, number and characteristics of blue and minute peaks. The location and character of the blue peaks, distribution and location. Next, humidity and percentage moisture in air. Humidity lessens the extent of combustion, yielding more gunpowder nitrates. False positive reaction. Smear of blue color or a conglomeration of blue specks on both dorsal and palm aspects of the hand. Failure to find traces of nitrate on the hand of the person does not prove that he did not fire a gun, but it is submitted that the paraffin test has some value due to the psychological effect on the person whose hands were found positive. Also, the finding of actual traces of gunpowder nitrates on the hands of a person does not conclusively determine or establish that he has discharged a gun. It is possible that the GPR particle may have been blown on the hand directly from the barrel of the gun being discharged by another person. Next, gunpowder residue test on firearms. The diphenolamine reagent is also applied to cotton swabbing of the barrel and chambers of the gun to determine if a firearm was discharged. A deep blue color resulting from the reaction of nitrates with the reagent indicates presence of gunpowder residue. Established forensic roles. The forensic chemist on case shall conduct the gunpowder residue examination, GPR, without delay. Next, after the examination is done, the firearm shall be returned to the representative of the requesting unit if the request is solely for gunpowder residue or GPR examination, or submitted to the field of ballistic examination is required. Gunshot range or GSR determination, also known as gunshot distance determination. When a firearm is discharged, gunpowder residue may also be deposited on the coating of the victim. The size and density of the pattern of gunpowder residue found on the coating that the main factors considered in determining the approximate distance of the shooter to the victim. As the distance to the victim increases, the size of pattern expands while density decreases, and vice versa. Next, distance determination. The method of determining the distance between the firearm and the target. This is usually based on the distance of the powder patterns or the spread of the shot pattern. There are importance of distance determination. First, in common connection to self-defense pleas. Second, in the distinction between murder and suicide. It is possible to state with certainty the distance of the gun from the target by means of the patterns and residues left on the target. not only the type of gun, but also the condition and type of ammunition that will affect this pattern. Next, in ascertaining the gunshot range or GSR, the examiner should note and observe the following: entrance and exit holes, powder residue pattern, burning, singing, smudging, tattooing, a black parsley, peppered pattern. Next, age of the gun or efficiency of mechanism. Complete combustion or the conversion of all nitrates into its end product is more likely to occur in a new weapon compared to an old one. Besides, leakage of gunpowder is more likely to happen in an old weapon where the breech mechanism is no longer tightly fitted. Next, direction of firing. More powder residues will be obtained when the gun is fired upward than downward. Gunpowder residues have weight and will naturally fall down because of gravity. Next, wind direction and velocity. In high velocity, strong wind, the powder residues will be blown in the direction of the wind. One is more likely to the positive for gunpowder nitrates if there is no wind or the direction is away from the body. Next, humidity or percentage moisture in air. Humidity lessens the extent of combustion, yielding more gunpowder nitrates. Powder tattooing produces black parsley, peppered pattern. Individual peaks of tattooing around the hole are visible by the naked eye. The area of blackening around the formation will be found to diminish in size as the muzzle of the gun is held further away from the target. Take note that the size of the area of gunpowder tattooing will also depend on the following: caliber, gunpowder charts, distance of firing. Individual peaks of tattooing around the hole are visible to the naked eye. The area of blackening around the perforation will be found to diminish in size as the muzzle of the gun is held further, and at the distance of 8 inches, blackening around the hole will completely disappear. A few individual peaks of tattooing will be visible to the naked eye. Next, wounds inflicted at the distance of more than 36 inches. Powder tattooing is seldom present. Nitrates found will not be sufficient for GSR. Next, valid comparison. A type of examination using a microscope which is commonly used in comparison of an empty shell containing characteristic marks from grooves of the gun, barrel, and firing pin of a specific firearm use. Other methods of examination. To determine whether the victim was holding a firearm, one method used is by spraying the hands of the victim with resin spray to determine the presence of iron traces. The 1986 hydroxygyllodine test with fluorescent photography can also be used. Stevens and Messler, 1974. A suicide victim's hands are stained with orange-brown color upon contact with gun barrels following death, presumably from perspiration with prolonged post-mortem interval of intact. Latent fingerprints can be detected in cartridge and expanded shell casing. It is latent because the substance from perspiration mixed with oils from sebaceous glands are transferred via a substance in the skin ridges to an object. Increase of temperature and low humidity decreases persistence of fingerprints. Brass retains fingerprint, the nickel-plated materials, given 1976. Next, firearm examination. Methods used to determine the probable time the firearm has been discharged. Lucas test. A characteristic smell that decreases and intensity with lapse of time is present immediately after firing, but even after several weeks, some slight smell remains. Next, odor, hydrogen sulfate. This is another product resulting from combustion of gunpowder, which is present in the gaseous state. This compound can be detected by means of lead acetate paper test. If the breech of the gun is kept closed, this persists between 2 to 3 hours. Sulfate. The greater part disappears is about 4 to 5 hours, but frequently at risk remains for a longer time, the longest period being 10 hours.